My name is Amanda, and I am 32 years old. I work as an accountant at a financial firm in Dallas. After 10 years of saving every penny, I finally bought my first house. It was a dream come true. I thought inviting my retired parents to live with me would be the perfect way to repay them for everything they sacrificed. But one decision they made under my roof changed everything overnight, and I never saw it coming. Before we dive into this story, I want to know where you are watching from today. Drop your city or country in the comments below. If you believe that family love should never come at the cost of losing yourself, hit that like button right now. And if you are new here, subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a story that might just change how you see your own relationships. Now, let me take you back to where it all began. I grew up in a small town about 3 hours west of Dallas. The kind of place where everybody knew everybody, where screen doors slammed shut in the summer, and the smell of barbecue drifted through the neighborhood every Sunday afternoon. We did not have much, but my parents made sure I never felt like I was missing out on anything important. My father worked as a mechanic at the only auto repair shop in town. His hands were always stained with grease, his fingernails permanently darkened from years of fixing engines and replacing brake pads. He left the house before sunrise and came home after sunset 6 days a week, sometimes seven when money was tight. I remember watching him come through the door, exhausted his shoulders, hunched forward like he was carrying the weight of the world. But he always smiled when he saw me. Always. My mother worked as a kitchen helper at a small family restaurant on Main Street. She peeled potatoes, washed dishes, chopped vegetables, and did whatever else they needed her to do. The pay was barely above minimum wage, but she never complained. Not once. She would come home smelling like onions and cooking oil, her feet swollen from standing all day, and she would still find the energy to help me with my homework at the kitchen table. We lived in a two-bedroom house with peeling paint and a roof that leaked every time it rained hard. My bedroom was so small that my twin bed barely fit. I did my homework on a folding table that my father had found at a garage sale, but those walls held more love than any mansion ever could. My parents never finished high school. Life circumstances forced them to work at a young age, and education became a luxury they could not afford. But they made a promise to each other, before I was even born. Their child would have the opportunities they never had. Their child would go to college. Their child would have a better life. And they kept that promise. I remember the sacrifices they made. My mother wore the same 3 dresses for years so she could put money into my school supplies fund. My father drove a truck that was older than me, nursing it back to health every time it broke down, because he refused to spend money on a new vehicle when that money could go toward my future. When I got accepted into the University of Texas at Austin, my mother cried for an hour straight. My father just stood there nodding slowly, his eyes glistening, in a way I had never seen before. They were so proud, and I was determined to make their sacrifices worth it. College was not easy. I worked part-time jobs throughout my 4 years. I waitressed at a diner near campus, tutored younger students in math, and even cleaned offices on weekends. I graduated with a degree in accounting and a mountain of student loans, but I also graduated with something else: a burning desire to succeed, a need to prove that my parents had not sacrificed in vain. I moved to Dallas right after graduation and started at an entry-level position at a small accounting firm. The pay was modest, but I treated every dollar like it was precious. I lived in a tiny studio apartment with a mattress on the floor and a microwave that served as my primary cooking appliance. I packed my lunch every day. I said no to happy hours and weekend trips. I said no to a lot of things that my coworkers took for granted. Year after year, I climbed. I got promotions. I changed companies. I built my reputation as someone who was reliable, meticulous, and willing to put in the work that others avoided. By the time I turned 30, I was a senior accountant at a respected financial firm, earning a salary that would have seemed unimaginable to the little girl who did homework on a garage sale table. But I never forgot where I came from, and I never forgot the two people who made it all possible. Throughout those years, I visited my parents as often as I could. Every holiday, every birthday, sometimes just random weekends when I missed the sound of my mother humming in the kitchen or the sight of my father tinkering with something in the garage. They had aged, of course. My father's hair had turned completely gray, and his back gave him trouble now. My mother moved slower, her joints aching from decades of physical labor. They had both retired by then, living off Social Security and the small savings they had managed to accumulate. The idea came to me one evening while I was driving back to Dallas after a Thanksgiving visit. I was 31 years old, and I had been saving for a house for nearly a decade. I had enough for a down payment on a modest home in the suburbs. Nothing fancy, but something real. Something mine. But as I drove through the darkness, passing small towns and empty fields, a different vision began to form in my mind. What if I bought a house big enough for all of us? What if I could finally give my parents the comfortable life they deserved? They could retire in peace without worrying about bills or repairs. They could spend their golden years surrounded by family, in a nice neighborhood with a backyard where my father could plant tomatoes, and my mother could sit in the sun. The more I thought about it, the more right it felt. This was my chance to repay them. This was my chance to be the daughter they had always believed I could be. I spent the next several months house hunting. I found a beautiful 3-bedroom home in a quiet suburb north of Dallas. It had a spacious living room, a modern kitchen, a small backyard with a patio, and most importantly, enough room for 3 people to live comfortably. The day I signed the closing papers, my hands were shaking. Not from fear, but from joy. I called my parents that same evening. My mother answered on the third ring. I could hear the television in the background, some game show she liked to watch after dinner. "Mom," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "I bought a house." She gasped. "A house, Amanda, that is wonderful. Oh, your father needs to hear this." Harold picked up the other phone. Amanda bought a house. I heard my father's voice join the line, gruff but curious. "A house in Dallas, yes, Dad. 3 bedrooms, a nice backyard, close to work but in a quiet area." There was a pause. Then my mother spoke, her voice trembling slightly. "That is so wonderful, sweetheart. We are so proud of you." I took a deep breath. "Actually, Mom, there is something else I want to talk to you about. One of those bedrooms is for you. Both of you. I want you to come live with me." Silence. Then my mother started crying. Not soft, gentle tears, but deep, heaving sobs that came from somewhere profound. "Harold," she kept saying between breaths. "Harold, did you hear that?" My father cleared his throat. "I heard." "What do you think, Dad?" I asked. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he said in that measured way of his, "You are a grown woman now, Amanda. You know what you are doing." It was not exactly a yes, but it was not a no either. And from my father, that was as close to enthusiasm as I was going to get. 2 weeks later, my parents arrived with a small moving truck containing their belongings. I stood on the front porch of my new home, watching them pull into the driveway, and my heart felt like it might burst. This was it. This was the beginning of everything I had worked for. My mother climbed out of the truck and immediately started crying again when she saw the house. "It is beautiful," she whispered. "Amanda, it is so beautiful." My father walked up the driveway, slowly taking it all in. He stopped in front of me, looked me in the eye, and nodded once. "You did good," he said. That night, we sat together in the living room, eating takeout Chinese food on paper plates because I had not had time to fully unpack the kitchen. My mother could not stop talking about how spacious everything was, how modern the appliances were, how lucky we all were. My father was quieter, but I caught him smiling several times when he thought no one was watching. As I lay in bed that night, I felt a peace I had not experienced in years. My parents were safe. They were comfortable. They were under my roof where I could take care of them the way they had taken care of me. I thought this was the happiest chapter of my life beginning. I had no idea it was actually the beginning of the end of everything I thought I knew. The first 3 months were exactly what I had imagined. My mother took over the kitchen, insisting on cooking dinner every night, even though I told her she did not have to. My father found projects to keep himself busy, fixing a squeaky door here, tightening a loose cabinet handle there. We fell into a comfortable rhythm, the 3 of us, and I began to believe that this arrangement was going to work perfectly. But somewhere around the 4th month, things started to shift. It began with small things, so small that I almost did not notice them at first. One evening, I came home from work and found that the living room furniture had been rearranged. The couch that I had carefully positioned facing the window was now against the opposite wall. The coffee table I had chosen specifically because it matched the rug was gone, replaced by an old wooden table my mother had brought from their house. "Mom," I said, trying to keep my voice neutral. "What happened to the coffee table?" She looked up from the magazine she was reading. "Oh, that thing. It was too modern. Did not feel like home. I had your father bring up this one from the garage. Much better, do not you think? I stood there looking at the table that now sat in my living room. It was scratched and worn completely out of place with the aesthetic I had spent months curating. But my mother looked so pleased with herself that I swallowed my objection. Sure, Mom. It looks nice. A week later, I found that the curtains in the guest bathroom had been changed. Then the dishes in the kitchen cabinets were reorganized in a way that made no sense to me. Then the photographs I had hung in the hallway were taken down and replaced with old family portraits from my parents' house. Each change was minor on its own, but together they began to add up to something that made me uncomfortable. My house was slowly transforming into something that was not mine anymore. I tried to talk to my mother about it one Saturday morning. We were sitting on the back patio drinking coffee, and I thought it was a good time to bring up my concerns gently. Mom, I appreciate that you want to make this place feel like home. But some of these changes, like the furniture and the decorations I had, those things set up a certain way for a reason. Could you maybe check with me before making changes in the future? She stared at me for a long moment, and I watched her expression shift from confusion to hurt. Check with you, Amanda. I am your mother. I am just trying to help. Do you not want my help? Of course, I want your help, Mom. I just meant that maybe we could discuss things together before they happen. Her eyes filled with tears. I see. So now I need permission to do anything in this house. After everything I did for you growing up now, you do not even trust me to hang a picture on the wall. Mom, that is not what I said. But she was already getting up her coffee, abandoned on the patio table. I knew this would happen, she muttered as she walked back inside. I knew you would start treating us like strangers. I told your father this was a mistake. I sat there alone feeling like the worst daughter in the world. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe I needed to be more flexible, more accommodating. After all, they had given me so much. What were a few decorating changes compared to a lifetime of sacrifice? So I stopped objecting. I stopped saying anything when my mother moved things around or changed things without asking. I told myself it was the price of having them live with me, and it was a small price to pay for family harmony. But then my father started having his friends over. It started innocently enough. One Saturday afternoon, I came home from running errands to find three men I did not recognize, sitting in my living room, beers in hand, watching a baseball game on my television. My father was in his recliner, laughing at something one of them had said. Dad, I said from the doorway, who are your friends? He barely glanced at me. Oh, these are some guys from the old neighborhood. Frank, Eddie, and Lou. Boys, this is my daughter Amanda. They all nodded in my direction, barely looking away from the television. Frank held up his beer. Nice place you got here. Thanks, I managed, then retreated to my bedroom. I told myself it was fine. My father needed social interaction. He needed friends. It was healthy for him to maintain connections. But those Saturday gatherings became a regular occurrence. Every weekend, sometimes both Saturday and Sunday, a rotating cast of my father's old buddies would show up at my house. They would drink beer, watch sports, and play cards at my dining room table. They were loud, they left messes. They tracked dirt on my carpet and left rings on my coffee table. One Sunday night, the gathering went until after midnight. I had work the next morning, and I could not sleep because of the noise coming from downstairs. Finally, at 12:30, I went down in my robe and asked them politely if they could wrap things up. My father looked at me like I had insulted him in front of his friends. We are almost done, he said flatly. Go back to bed. Dad, it is after midnight. I have work in the morning. One of his friends, Eddie, I think, laughed. Your daughter has got you on a tight leash, Harold. My father's jaw tightened. She is just tired. We will keep it down. I went back upstairs, humiliated and frustrated. Lying in bed listening to the muffled sounds of their continued gathering, I felt something I had not expected to feel in my own home. I felt like an outsider. The realization crept up on me slowly over the following weeks. Little by little, I was being pushed to the margins of my own life. My mother had taken over the kitchen and the living spaces. My father had claimed the weekends. The house that I had worked a decade to afford was starting to feel like it belonged to everyone, except me. I started spending more time in my bedroom just to have a space that still felt like mine. I would eat dinner quickly, then retreat upstairs with the excuse that I had work to do. I started staying late at the office, not because I had to, but because it was quieter there than at home. One night lying in bed, and staring at the ceiling, I admitted something to myself that I had been avoiding. I was unhappy. This was not how I had imagined things would be. This was not the beautiful family reunion I had pictured when I signed those closing papers. Something had gone wrong somewhere, but I could not figure out how to fix it without hurting the people I loved most. I decided to try one more time to talk to my mother, to explain how I was feeling calmly and clearly, and ask for some boundaries. I found her in the kitchen the next morning making breakfast. "Mom, can we talk?" She turned to look at me, spatula in hand. "Of course, sweetheart. What is it?" I took a deep breath. I have been feeling a little overwhelmed lately. This house, it is still new to me, and I am still trying to figure out how to balance work and home life. I was hoping we could establish some boundaries. Nothing major, just some basic guidelines, so everyone feels comfortable. Her expression changed. Boundaries, yes. Like maybe having a conversation before making changes to the house, or keeping the weekend gatherings to one day instead of two. Small things that would help me feel more settled. My mother put down the spatula. Her eyes had that glisten that I knew preceded tears. "So that is what you think of us. That we are a burden. That we are in your way. No, Mom, that is not what I am saying at all. I knew this would happen." She shook her head slowly. "I told your father. I said she will resent us eventually. Children always do. They grow up and forget everything their parents did for them. Mom, please. I am not trying to fight. I am just trying to communicate." But she was already walking out of the kitchen, leaving the eggs burning on the stove. I turned off the burner and stood there alone, feeling defeated. That night, I heard my parents talking in their room. Their voices were low, but I caught fragments through the wall. "She does not want us here," my mother was saying. "We should just go." My father's response was too quiet for me to hear. "We made a mistake coming here," my mother continued. "She is not the same girl we raised." I pressed my hand against the wall, my heart aching. How had everything gone so wrong? I loved my parents. I had invited them here out of love. Why could they not see that I was struggling? Why did every attempt at conversation turn into an accusation? I went to bed that night feeling more alone than I had ever felt in my life. And I had no idea that things were about to get much, much worse. It was a Thursday evening about 5 months after my parents had moved in. I had stayed late at the office finishing up some quarterly reports, and by the time I pulled into my driveway, the sun had already set. The house was lit up from inside, warm light spilling from the windows, and for a moment it looked almost welcoming. But when I opened the front door, I immediately sensed that something was different. There was a man sitting on my couch. He was large, probably 6 feet tall, and heavy-set, with thinning brown hair, and a face that looked like it had seen better days. He was wearing jeans and a faded flannel shirt, and he had his feet up on my coffee table, the old wooden one my mother had insisted on. He looked at me when I walked in, and his expression was not quite friendly, but not quite hostile either. Just assessing, like he was trying to figure out who I was. "Excuse me," I said, my key still in my hand. "Can I help you?" Before the stranger could respond, my mother appeared from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a dish towel. "Amanda, there you are." She came over and touched my arm gently, a gesture that seemed designed to calm me down before she delivered whatever news was coming. "Come sit down. There is someone I want you to meet." "Who is this?" I asked, not moving from the doorway. The man on the couch finally spoke. His voice was deep with a slight rasp to it. "I am Derek. You must be Amanda. Your mother has told me a lot about you." I looked at my mother, waiting for an explanation. She took a deep breath. "Amanda, I need to tell you something I should have told you a long time ago. Do you remember my friend Lorraine from the old neighborhood? I searched my memory. The name was vaguely familiar. She used to come over for coffee sometimes right before she moved away. That is right." My mother nodded. "Well, Lorraine passed away about 15 years ago. Cancer. It was very sudden. I am sorry to hear that." I said, still not understanding what this had to do with the man on my couch. "Lorraine had a son." My mother gestured toward Derek. "When she got sick, she asked me to look after him. He was already grown, of course, about 25 at the time. But Lorraine wanted to make sure he had someone to turn to if he needed help. I promised her I would always be there for him." I stood there processing this information. "So you have been in contact with him all these years? Why did you never tell me? It never came up." My mother shrugged. "You were busy with school then, with your career. Derek was living his own life. There was no reason to bring it up." I looked at Derek again. He was watching me with an expression I could not quite read. And now, why is he here now? My mother and father exchanged a glance. My father had come into the living room at some point, standing near the hallway with his arms crossed. Derek has had a difficult time recently, my mother said. He lost his job 6 months ago. Then his wife left him. He has been staying with friends, but he ran out of options. My stomach dropped. I could see where this was going. So we told him he could stay.